सभी को नमस्कार. A very warm welcome to everyone who have joined through Zoom and YouTube. Uh, just like every week, the idea is to trying to make some interesting project with the tool named Geogebra, where we try to understand some of the fundamentals and try to build some projects. तो आप सभी का स्वागत है. हर हफ्ते की तरह आज भी हम कुछ जियोजेब्रा में इंटरेस्टिंग प्रोजेक्ट बनाने की कोशिश करेंगे. आज जो है वो we would be go to three-dimensional parameters and we would try to do something in 3D geometry, unlike all the previous projects which we have made where we were dealing with the two-dimensional, largely the x and y dimensional. तो आज जो है वो हम कुछ 3D चीजों के बनाने के ऊपर और उनको समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. आज जो है वो कुकुम्बर, संतरे और बीटरूट जो है उसको हम थोड़ा देखेंगे. So we'll look at the cylindrical shape, we'll look at the spherical shape, and we'll look at the conical shape, and we'll try to understand the similarity between them. So for me, it's all the 3D solids are the same in some sense, and they have some non-similarity. So we'll try to explore some of these 3D solids. आगे बढ़े उससे पहले किसी भी कुछ विचार हो? Anybody who wanted to share, ask anything? This is the time where we'll be taking some of the queries or anything you have to ask or suggest and share.
Namaskar,
and
sir.
then of course. जी very
Namaskar,
sir.
This
जी
is
Hari
Hari Krishna from Telangana.
Yeah, hello sir.
Okay, sir. As per your advice, we have done the assignment for the last week. But the thing is, when we have taken the second table, it has to be connected to 2 to 4, 4 to 6. But as we are done that exercise, that is connecting 1 to 3, 3 to 5. It is going on.
Right.
So
right.
where we committed the mistake.
Right.
That
So maybe you wanted to just shift your label a bit.
Okay.
So either the starting point can be 30-degree shifted, pi by 6 उसको shift कर सकते हैं, or the labeling can be shifted. Then it
Okay.
should fine. Then it should be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, discussions, anything you wanted to share? Let me also check in the YouTube if something has somebody has any comments. All right. Hemant is saying hi. Namaskar sir. जी. All right. No? ठीक है. चलिए. So here is the very first question for all of you. The question is, how many dimension does the circle have? If I take a circle and let me try to draw and for that let me just share my slides with all of you. Question है, सर्कल के कितने परिमाण हैं? How many dimension does the circle have? That's the question. You can type that in a let me just share my screen first with you. Yeah. And take you to my slides. All right. The question is, how many dimension does the circle have? Right? And for that, maybe let me just add slides here. क्या सवाल है? फिर से एक बार दोहरा देता हूं. Question is, how many dimensions does the circle have? Right? And the options can be 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't say it. So let's say the option is it has in 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension. Can't say it. It could be anything. Depending on where you are drawing it. Okay. क्या लगता है आपको? You can type it in the chat, or you can also uh, uh, also on the YouTube. Also, you can type the same thing. How many dimension does the circle have? So Radha ji is saying 0 dimension. Okay. Most of them are saying the 2 dimension. Then Radha ji is saying radius as well. Okay. Kavita ji is saying center and radius. So that's how you define a circle. But the question is how many dimension does it have? Circle can also be, so if you are saying that center and radius, there are 2 parameters, that's why it's a 2D thing. Then the circle can also be defined as something which is passing, I mean circle passing from a 3 point. So this is also a circle can be defined in that way. So does it have a 3 dimension? So maybe you wanted to become more specific to that. All right, let me also see in my chat box. So most people believes it's a 2-dimensional. Acharita ji is saying it's in 1-dimensional, which is very interesting. And all right, ठीक है, चलिए. So let me start with something which is very simple. Let me start with an, instead of circle, एक segment से शुरू करते हैं, एक line segment से शुरू करते हैं. Right? And let me draw that in an overhead camera on a paper. So let me for that switch to the overhead camera. Okay. So if I look at a line segment, let's say a line segment between 2 points, थोड़ा और zoom in कर लेता हूं. So let's say here you have a point A and Eric, it's good. Left. All right. So I got a message that it's some of the frames are getting lagged. Let me see what I can do about that. Just a second. Huh? Are you also facing some difficulty in seeing the video? कुछ दिक्कत हो रहा है आपको? Let me check my network status, whether it's just a second. All right. ठीक है. So the question is, let's say if I take a line segment, how many dimension does a line segment have? Let me once again repeat it. Before going to a circle, let's look at something which is simpler than a circle. Let's say if it's a line segment, how many dimension does the line segment have? And I would say the line segment, let me just draw one. So how the way I wanted to look at this is, so let's say for example, what is a line segment? It's actually a collection of points between A to B. All right, and so these are the infinite dots placed from A to B. For example, any point P I wanted to define on this particular line segment. How many parameters do I need? The parameter do I need once the A and B are fixed? This is given to me. The only thing I need to know is the distance from one of the point. Let's say, for example, this distance is T. So once the position of A and B is given to me, the only parameter needed to define all the points on this particular line segment is a T. And so here I'm using only one parameter to define the points on a line segment. That's only one parameter, which is the distance from one of the starting points. So this is one dimensional for me. The question is, let's say, for example, given a P, how do I define its coordinates on an XY plane? Then I would require a distance with an X or a distance with Y. So given a point P, how do I define it in a let's say, for example, XY plane? For that, I require two parameters. If the P point is, let's say, in the three-dimensional, then I would, along with the X and Y, I also need to define its height with an XY plane. So in that case, I required three parameters for point P. But what I'm focusing right now is, in given a line segment and in a point A and B, with how many parameters I can define the position of P. For me, that many dimensions is about that particular line segment. So as of now, I only required one parameter, which is the distance from one of the point, let's say T. So this is how I would say the line is in one dimensional for me. With this perspective, now can you share me how many dimension, how many parameters does the circle have? फिर से एक बार दोहरा देते हैं. आप अगर लाइन सेगमेंट को देखें, तो इस जो लाइन सेगमेंट है उसमें मैं कोई पॉइंट पी ले लूं. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल द पॉइंट वेयर ये जो पेन की कैप है, यहाँ पे एक पॉइंट है. तो ये जो पॉइंट है उसके लिए मुझे कितने पैरामीटर्स की जरूरत पड़ेगी? And this line segment has been defined as a starting position and an ending position. तो उसके लिए मुझे एक पैरामीटर की जरूरत पड़ेगी. ये जो पॉइंट है, स्टार्ट कोई भी एक पॉइंट है, उससे इसकी दूरी कितनी है, उससे सभी पॉइंट का मैं डिफाइन कर सकता हूं. And this is one of the perspective. Somebody would say कि इस पॉइंट P को मुझे XY प्लेन में अगर डिफाइन करना है, so in that case that point has to be defined in the terms of, let's say, Cartesian coordinate में हम कर रहे हैं. तो x एक्सिस से कितनी दूरी है, y एक्सिस से कितनी दूरी है, तो उस पॉइंट को xy पोजीशन में डिफाइन करने के लिए मुझे टू पैरामीटर चाहिए. बट ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर लाइन सेगमेंट, the points on this particular line segment requires only one parameter given the starting and the ending positions, which is the distance from the starting point. इस perspective से, can you now tell me how many dimension does the circle have? सर्कल के कितने परिमाण हैं, कितने पैरामीटर्स मुझे लगेंगे सर्कल जो है उसके ऊपर पॉइंट डिफाइन करने के लिए? Let me once again now see the answers. Okay, and how about the chat messages? So Monica is saying line has in one dimensional, circle is a part of plane, it contains area, so it has two dimension. All right, so most people still feels that it's the two dimensional. One is the angle, one is the position. Now let me come back to our definition of a circle. Circle is defined as all the points which are equidistant from a given point. This is how the circle has been defined, isn't it? Let me once again take you to the overhead camera, how a circle has been defined. So let me try to draw an approximate circle. So let's say this is the center. So these points, these are all the points which makes a circle. And how about this particular point? This can be termed as this entire area can be termed as this area inscribed by the circle. This is not a circle. ये वाला जो भी portion है सब, this is not part of a circle. This is a circle. These are all the points who have the same distance from the circle. इनको हम वर्तुल बोलेंगे, इनको हम जो है वो सर्कल बोलेंगे, नॉट द इनसाइड पोर्शन। दिस कैन बी टर्म्ड एज एन एरिया इंस्क्राइब्ड बाय द सर्कल। अब प्रश्न है मुझे कि कोई भी पॉइंट को डिफाइन करना है तो मैं कैसे करूं, कितने परिमाण लगेंगे मुझे जो पॉइंट्स है जो सर्कल के ऊपर है। सो दिस इज व्हाट द सर्कल मींस। वो सारे पॉइंट्स जो किसी एक बिंदु से समान दूरी पे हैं उनको हम वर्तुल से व्याख्यायित करते हैं। तो प्रश्न है कि उनके लिए कितने परिमाण लगेंगे, हाउ मेनी पैरामीटर्स डू आई नीड टू define let's say for example a given point on a circle, and the answer is, let me once again draw a circle. Let me also take you to the overhead camera once I draw this. So let's say if I look at this particular point P, which is on a circle, the way I need to define this is considering this as an x-axis. So this can be only defined using angle theta, because given a circle, its radius is fixed. ये जो दूरी है वो तो निश्चित है r, ये चेंज नहीं हो सकती इन अ गिवन सर्कल। ये तो एक बार आपने सर्कल ड्रॉ कर लिया तो आपका सर्कल और ये जो सेंटर है वो तो फिक्स्ड है। अब इस सर्कल के ऊपर मुझे कोई भी पॉइंट लेना है तो उसके लिए मुझे एक ही पैरामीटर लगेगा उसको डिफाइन करने के लिए, विच इज थीटा। एंड दैट्स ट्रू फॉर एनी parametric curve. Our circle is actually a one dimensional. And how do you try to sort of write this in a GeoGebra or in a parametric equations? So we'll start with this and then we'll eventually go to some other figures. Like for example, we'll try to now, after this, we'll try to understand how many parameter does a cylinder has. How many parameter does a cone have? सिलेंडर कितने डायमेंशन का है, कोन कितने डायमेंशन का है, या स्फीयर कितने डायमेंशन का है, उसको आज हम समझने की कोशिश करेंगे और इन सभी 3D सॉलिड्स को एक अलग नजरिए से देखने की कोशिश करेंगे। बट बिफोर दैट लेट मी जस्ट ट्राई to start with something which is very simpler. Let's start with drawing a circle in this particular definition which we have just seen. ठीक है, तो उसके लिए क्या करेंगे? So for that, for those who have never used this tool named GeoGebra, all you need to do is type geogebra.org in your website and type enter, and then if you haven't created your account, you should by sign up for on this particular website. So all your work will be stored here, and if you already have an account, so you can log in to your account so that आप जो भी काम करेंगे वो यहाँ पे स्टोर रहेगा। After that, if you click on this particular option, start calculator, it will open this screen. On the left hand side you see a cursor, that's where you type your commands. मैं इसके font size एक बार बढ़ा देता हूँ so that you should be able to see the commands very clearly. All right, and on the right hand side what you see is a graphical window. ये जो आपको एक्स वाई प्लॉट दिख रहे हैं ग्रिड के अंदर, this is your graphical window. Whatever we type in our command window, it will be gonna reflected to your graphical window. So for any parametric equation you wanted to do, if it has an only one parameter, it can be defined as a curve. कर्व की परिभाषा ये है कि उसके अंदर एक पैरामीटर है, एक चीज है जो चेंज होती रहेगी। एंड फॉर ड्रॉइंग एनी कर्व, सो सर्कल इज आल्सो अ कर्व, तो उसके लिए जो कमांड है that is curve curve, and the moment I write this particular curve, it is saying me कि the options or the parameters or the in this particular command it takes is कि expression लिखना है। The first expression is about how it is changing in an x direction. The another expression saying is how it is changing in a y direction, and the parameter which you are using, for example in the case of a circle, the parameter is your angle. तो वो एंगल कैसे चेंज हो रहा है, कौन सी वैल्यू से चेंज हो रहा है, वो यहाँ पे बताना है। सो नाउ फॉर द सर्कल, हाउ इट इज चेंजिंग इन एन एक्स डायरेक्शंस, वी नो दैट दिस इज cos theta, in the y, it is changing with the sine theta. The parameter which I'm using here is in theta, let's say th. Its starting value is 0 and the ending value for this is 2 pi. So this is how I have defined my circle. It has only one parameter, which is an angle. All right. Now somebody would say कि you have just drawn it at an origin. How about if I wanted to have this circle center as an मुझे x axis पे 1,0 पे उसका center चाहिए. Can anybody tell me what should I change here such that कि ये जो circle है वो एक unit, उसका center है वो एक unit shift हो जाए right hand side पे. Can anybody guide me? What should I write in this particular command to shift this circle 1 unit right hand side? Yeah. Once again, let us just revisit this particular command. ये command क्या बताता है? Curve is an all one dimensional, the one parametric thing you wanted to draw. The curve has only one parameter. What is the parameter here? The parameter is an angle. And how I have defined it? So I have defined it as in कि उसका जो x axis में जो change होना है, x direction में जो change होना है वो cos theta होना चाहिए, y direction में जो change होना चाहिए वो sin theta होना चाहिए, and theta is ranging from 0 to 2 pi. Sandhya ji is saying me कि yeah, so this is also a unit circle which can be defined as an x square plus y square plus 1. This is how you can also represent it in an algebraic form कि x square plus y square, and let me write that as well. This can also be written as x square plus y square equals to 1. This is how you define your the circle in quadratic equation. But यहाँ पे उसी circle को हम एक अलग नजरिए से देखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं using a parameter, where the parameter is an angle, and for angle which is ranging from 0 to 2 pi, we have defined it कि x में कैसे change करना है, y में कैसे change करना है, and this is how I have drawn a circle. The question is, if I wanted to shift this circle, इसका जो center है मुझे 1 unit shift करना है right hand side पे, तो मैं क्या करूं? क्या चेंज करूं मेरे कर्व के पैरामीटर में, या कर्व के ये जो मैंने यहाँ पे डिफाइन किया है जिस तरह से सर्कल को, उसमें क्या चेंज करूं कि ये राइट हैंड साइड पे शिफ्ट हो जाए? एनी थॉट्स, एनी सजेशंस? एंड लेट मी चेक इन द यूट्यूब इफ ऑब्जेक्ट का मिड पॉइंट. ओके, एंगल को चेंज करें. क्या चेंज करें एंगल में? Yeah, Sandhya ji wanted to unmute and share me what do you mean by an angle here? Ramaswamy ji, how can I mean object midpoint, what do you mean by that? Let me once again define my requirement. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a circle with its center as 1,0 and the radius as 1. ये मुझे ड्रॉ करना है जो मैंने अभी कमांड से सर्कल ड्रॉ किया, ऐसे नहीं, बट मुझे ड्रॉ करना है पैरामीट्रिकली बाय डिफाइन इट्स पैरामीटर. क्वेश्चन इज हाउ डू आई डू सो? व्हाट शुड आई चेंज इन दिस पर्टिकुलर कमांड सच दैट कि ये जो है ये वाला जो कमांड से है, काला वाला जिस जगह पे ये सर्कल है वहां पे बन जाइए. ऑल आई नीड टू डू इज हाउ इट्स जिस तरह से मैंने यहाँ पे इसके x और y जो है वो एक्सप्रेशंस को डिफाइन किया है, यहाँ पे मैं बस इतना करूंगा जो भी वैल्यू x की हो उसमें बस एक एक की बढ़ोतरी हो जाए. वॉट एवर द वैल्यूज आर फॉर ऑल द थीटास, जो भी मुझे x कोऑर्डिनेट की वैल्यू मिल जा रही है उसको मुझे करना पड़ेगा कि उसका एक यूनिट शिफ्ट हो जाए, उसके y एक्सिस से दूरी जो है वो एक यूनिट बढ़ जाए. इफ आई डू सो यू विल सी दैट द सर्कल विल बी शिफ्टेड 1 unit on the right hand side. What if I want, yeah, and if I let's say do the x minus 1, तो यहाँ पे let's say if I do the -1, then it would be shifted towards the left hand side, isn't it? अगर इसको ऊपर मुझे शिफ्ट करना है तो क्या करेंगे? If I wanted to have 2 unit up, then this is what you do. So its center is nothing but its coordinate, the center of this particular circle would be -1, 2, isn't it? This is the center of your circle. Now what if I wanted to change its radius? कोई बताएगा कि अगर ये जो यूनिट रेडियस का सर्कल है, let me once again try to bring its center to the origin. अगर मुझे इसकी रेडियस कम करनी है तो कोई बताएगा मुझे यहाँ पे क्या करूं such that its radius would be, let's say, 0.5. So when I written cos theta and sin theta, it is assumed the radius, this is 1 multiplied by cos theta and 1 multiplied by sin theta, where 1 is nothing but its radius, isn't it? So instead of that, if I do 0.5 cos theta and if I do 0.5 of sin theta, so its radius would be gonna decrease by that. Now instead of 0.5 cos theta and 0.5 sin theta as an x expression and y expression, the first expression says कि x coordinate कैसे change करना है, the second expression says कि y coordinate कैसे change करना है. What if I write here as in 1? So the x parameter is changing by 1 cos theta and the y expression or the y coordinate is changing by 0.5 sin theta. Can you tell me what will be the output? कौन सा कर्व मिलेगा अगर मैं x को 1 से गुणा करूं और y जो है उसको 0.5 से गुणा करूं? Any guess? Any guess with that? फिर से एक बार सवाल दोहरा दे. ये जो कर्व का मैंने एक्सप्रेशन लिखा है, अगर मैं जो cos theta और sin theta के जो कांस्टेंट्स है, if I keep it as in same, then the output is a circle. But what if I change it with something, let's say a cos theta, comma b sin theta? So as Prasanna ji is saying, the output is an ellipse. And why so? And why so? So this is how I'm changing कि the change जितना मैंने x में change
y
करा
axis direction double, sir. It will become
correct.
double.
So right, so it's linearly get stretched कि x में जितना मुझे change करना है, y में वो जो change है उससे this particular change is double of that, and that's why it's that's why it's an ellipse. All right, ठीक है. Now and similarly, let's say for example, I can draw a lot of other curves. Can you tell me how can I draw a parabolic curve which is passing from an origin? Can somebody tell me how the x expression and y expression is changing for a parabolic curve? कैसे define करें? So in the command curve, I have to tell how the x expression is changing, how the y expression is changing for an 2D plane, and then you will use one of the parameter. Let's say in the previous command, I have used th as one of the expression or one of the parameter, and then you have to tell its starting value and an end value. So let's say if I write here as in t, where the change in the x is t and the change in y is, let's say, t square. And the parameter I have used here is a t and its starting value, let's say for example, it's a limited height or a limited length parabolic curve. So let this be a 0 to 2. And if I do so, now you see this is the half of the parabola. How can I draw a parabola in both the direction? Can anybody guide me with that? क्या change करूं इस command में ताकि मुझे ये जो लाल वाला है वो y-axis के इस side भी मिल जाए, उसकी mirror image भी मिल जाए. What should I change in this particular command? Are you able to see?
Instead of 0, you have to take -2. Instead of 0, -2 you have to take.
Right. So this will make sure that t's value starts from 2 to 2. So for x, it would start from a -2, -1.9, -1.8, all the finite precision point it would take for the x parameter is defined as in t. तो जो y axis से दूरी है वो एक 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 करके बढ़ रही है लीनियरली, और उसके स्क्वायर फॉर्म में y मतलब x एक्सिस से दूरी यानी y एक्सप्रेशन से बढ़ रही है. एंड इफ यू डू सो, दिस इज हाउ यू आर ड्राइंग योर पैराबोला. So all your curve with this particular perspective, they are actually in one parametric equation. It's in one dimensional in this particular sense. Every point can be defined using only one parameter. Just like for the circle, we have defined it in the form of theta. All right. The next question for you is, how many parameter does a cylinder has? जो सिलेंडर है उसके कितने पैरामीटर है, दैट्स द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. एंड देन विद दिस पैरामेट्रिक विजुअलाइजेशन विल मेक दैट will try to make a cylinder. All right. So Monica is saying 3 question marks. You don't have to, your answer cannot have a question mark. My question has to be the question mark in the end. Your answer has to be deterministic, isn't it? G. Okay. All right. Now you have. So most people say that it's a 3 parameters. All right. Let me also check on the YouTube what are their responses. ठीक है, मैं एक बार फिर से अपना सवाल दोहरा देता हूँ. सिलेंडर के कितने पैरामीटर हैं? How many parameters does a cylinder has? Sandeep ji is saying 2, so is Prasanna ji. Sandhya ji, Monica, Ramaswamy, they all feels it's a 3. Now this is very surprising. Prasanna ji is saying it's a 2 parametric, and maybe eventually we would like to understand how come it's a 2 parametric thing. Okay. Ravinder ji is saying 3. All right. Any other thoughts?
Actually, we are defining the circle with one parameter. If you add height, so with the second parameter itself, we can be define the cylinder.
Okay. All right. This is Sandeep ji.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. Sure. So of course there is there are various ways of how would you like to look at that. So also try to see how we have seen the circle. So let's say, for example, the circle can also be drawn in a 2D. Let's say, for example, where it's only the XY coordinates are there. It can be also drawn on a 3D. So the object can be on any dimensional system. It doesn't mean that its own dimensions are getting changed on which systems you are putting it or how you are defining it. What we are interested is in a given particular object, how many parameters, how many dimension does it have? And for me, the parameters and dimensions are the same for a given particular object. So for a circle, मतलब मैं एक चूड़ी को ले लूं तो चूड़ी मेरे लिए एक वन डायमेंशनल सिस्टम है. क्यों? क्योंकि लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल मैं चूड़ी को ऐसे डिफाइन कर रहा हूं कि ऑल द पॉइंट्स ऑन द बैंगल इज बेसिकली आई कैन डिफाइन इट अप एज कि अगर मुझे उसको एंड सर्कल इज अ फिक्स थिंग ना, उसकी रेडियस फिक्स है, उसकी लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल सेंटर फिक्स्ड है, वो कहां पे है. तो देन ओनली थिंग आई नीड फॉर ऑल पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट इज एट व्हाट एंगल they are from, let's say starting from an x-axis. So this is the only one parameter, only one dimension is required for me to define the points on a circle once let's say its point is given, once its radius is given. और वो तो निर्धारित कर दिया है अब आप बोलेंगे कि लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल वो अगर 3D में है तो फिर उसको हम तो एक डायमेंशन बढ़ जाएगा. सो फॉर मी on which reference frame you are putting, that's not important. For me the point is how many parameters I need to define, let's say all the points on a circle. Similarly for the cylinder is in two parametric system for me. How come? As Sandeep ji was saying कि मान लीजिए मुझे सिलेंडर की सरफेस पे कोई भी पॉइंट डिफाइन करना है. So for an example, consider this particular, let's say for example, a cylinder. So cylinder is nothing but a circles, a bangles stacked on top of each other, keeping the radius as constant. और मान लीजिए कोई भी पॉइंट मुझे बताना हो तो पॉइंट कैसे बता सकता हूं? So first at that particular height I will take a circle. So मान लीजिए कहीं पे भी मुझे पॉइंट डिफाइन करना है, and let me use my pen here. So let's say for example here I wanted to define a point. So यहाँ पे हम क्या करेंगे? I will draw a circle at this particular height because cylinder is nothing but a circle on top of stacked on top of each other. So from this particular point a circle would be passing. So height मुझे बतानी पड़ेगी, which is one parameter, and the another parameter is कि how at what angle it is. So once the circle is fixed, a point on a circle can be defined as in theta. Can be defined using another parameter, let's say angle, with respect to an x-axis. So I have used two parameters to define a cylinder. And what I mean by a cylinder here is a surface of a cylinder, to be very specific. Any point on a surface of cylinder can be defined using two parameters. So for me, this is a two-dimensional, two-parametric object. So for that, and how do you define that in a GeoGebra? So let me once again take you to the our. So let me use the 3D calculator. So for that, for the one parametric system, the command is, so somebody is saying, just for example, Acharita ji is saying ki the number of parameters or number of dimension you are using is radius, height, and an axis. So for me, how I'm looking at this thing, Acharita ji, is that ki, let's say for example, a cylinder has been given to me. I wanted to see how can I spot my point, let's say for example on the surface of a cylinder. If I'm talking about a point which is inside the volume inscribed by a cylinder, that is of course I need a three parameter. How come? So one, it has to be the height, the another is an angle, and among the angle also from an axis or from a center how much distance it is. So for that I required a three parameter if I consider about the volume inscribed by this particular cylinder. तो उसके लिए मुझे तीन पैरामीटर लगेंगे हर कोई पॉइंट को डिफाइन करने के लिए. But how about the surface? For the surface, I required only two parameters. One is the height and one is at what angle it is that. So in that sense, it's a two parametric system. So if how I can draw a cylinder in an XYZ parametric system. So for that, of course, as you have pointed out, you required a radius, you required a height, and also the axis, how the cylinder has been placed. So that's true. This is how you define a cylinder in a, let's say for example, three-dimensional system. But let's say if you go to a four-dimensional system, maybe how you define your cylinder and that particular system, you would require few more definitions or few more parameters into that part. But if you look at the cylinder itself, once it has been placed to somewhere, how can I spot it's one of the point? For that you required only 2 points for the surface of a cylinder. How do you look at it in an let's say for example this is GeoGebra. So curve is for a one parametric system. There is something command name as surface for a two parametric system. So for all surfaces is in two parametric. It's a two-dimensional thing for me. So for that the command is surface. and for the surface, I need to write this as an how for a given how the x expression is changing. So basically, if you look at the cylinder from a top, it is just like a circle. So the expression is same as for the circle in the x parameter. क्या है कि एंगल जो है वो हम चेंज कर रहे हैं and let this be cos t. How it is changing in and y, तो ये भी हमें पता है कि it's basically a circle for an xy plane. तो सर्कल में कैसा हो रहा है, साइन थीटा cos theta sin theta x और y चेंज हो रहे हैं. In a similar way, my cos and sin are
Sin.
changing. Can anybody tell me how it's changing in an z direction? So let's say, for example, the one of the expressions we have taken is angle t, जिनकी start value है, let's say for example 0, और end value मैं ले लेता हूँ 2 pi. This is how it is changing. And let me take another variable. This is for height h, जो कि जा रही है 0 to 1. And can anybody tell me how the z is changing for a, let's say for example, given expression? यहाँ पे मैंने h ले लिया है, पर मैं यहाँ पे कुछ भी ले सकता हूँ. मेरे नाम से let's say j ले सकता हूँ. This parameter can whatever you wanted to define. So if I tell this as an j, then this is what your two parametric systems are. This is how the cylinder's surface has been defined using the parametric equation. And we will see what magical stuff can be done or by visualizing it in this manner. So this is what your cylinder is, the surface of cylinder. क्या किया है हमने यहाँ पे? It's a two parametric systems. I needed two variables, two parameters. एक क्या है कि भाई सिलेंडर को हम ऐसे समझ सकते हैं, सर्कल के ऊपर सर्कल के ऊपर सर्कल के ऊपर सर्कल है, and so in an x expression how it is changing cos theta, y expression how it is changing sin theta. Now if you look at the height, it is just one on top of each other. तो जो वेरिएबल मैंने लिया है j 0 to 1, उतने ही उसी वेरिएबल के हिसाब से ये चेंज हो रहा है लीनियरली. जितना j की वैल्यू बढ़ेगा उतनी हाइट जो है उसकी बढ़ रही है. All right, if I wanted to have the let's say for example the diameter of this particular cylinder is 2 unit. If I wanted to have a height of this particular cylinder also as in 2 unit, can anybody tell me what should I change to make this cylinder same as I mean height of the cylinder same as its diameter, the base diameter? कोई बताएगा मैं क्या करूं यहाँ पे? What should I change in this?
0,2, I think.
Right. So if I, instead of height being starting from 0 to 1, if I make it 0 to 2, this is how your cylinder would look like. Now its diameter, and this is what, if you look at from the top, this is just a circle on an XY plane. And if you look at from the side, this is what it looks like. All the circle stacked on top of each other. And this is having a height 2. And it's also a square if you look at from the XZ plane, or let's say YZ plane. Take it. This is how your cylinder has been defined. Now, if I wanted to change the radius of this particular cylinder, can anybody tell me what should I do to,
Sir,
let's say,
1 plus cos t, 1 plus sin t, we can take.
what should I do, ma'am?
1 plus cos t,
1 plus
1
cos
plus
t.
sin.
All
1
right.
plus sin.
1 plus sin.
Then-
If I do so, now you'll see that
the cylinder will be displaced. Instead of
Right.
adding, you have to multiply.
all right. So if you add it, so which
Okay.
means that
Theta.
whatever cos theta's value and whatever sin theta
Or
values
cos
are
theta
getting,
or
that is
sin
added
theta,
to
I
the one.
think.
Right. So then
Or
if you wanted
cos
to
theta
change
or
its
sin.
radius, let's say for example, if you wanted to make its radius
2
half,
cos.
Sir, r cos theta or sin theta, I think.
indeed. So this is what the radius has halved and it has become a thinner. All right. Now, if you look at the cone, so here the radius is remaining constant. So now, can anybody tell me what is a cone? Cone is also a circle on top of each other. So question is, what is the difference between a cylinder and a cone? Let me once again repeat. सिलेंडर क्या है, सर्कल के ऊपर सर्कल रख दिए, चूड़ी के ऊपर रख दिए तो सिलेंडर बन जाता है. एवरी सर्कल रेडियस इज अ कांस्टेंट, सेम. Cone is
Decreasing
also,
the
if you
surface
chop
area.
the cone parallel to its base circle, you will also get a circle on top of each other. Question is then, what is the difference between a cucumber and a beetroot, a cone and a cylinder? What is the difference between that?
Decreasing the areas of circles.
Decreasing the area of a circle, or in other sense, it's also the radius which is getting decreased. So something is getting decreased for a cone. Question is how it is decreasing. What should I do? So it's same. The surface, the equation is same for cylinder and a cone. This is also circles. This is also forming a circle and stacking on each other. Same is for the cone, which is stacking on each other. Question is, what should I change here in order to make this cylindrical surface a conical surface? यहाँ पे मैं क्या चेंज करूं ताकि ये सिलेंडर में से कोन बन जाए. देखिए ये जो एक्सप्रेशन है ये भी सर्कल के ऊपर सर्कल रखने का ही एक्सप्रेशन है. व्हाट डज दिस एक्सप्रेशन मींस? दिस इज मींस एंड लेट मी कीप दिस. सो दिस एक्सप्रेशन सेज दैट कि 0.5 रेडियस का जो है सर्कल में जैसे चेंज होता है वैसे cos थीटा कर दीजिए, द रेडियस sin थीटा. दिस इज हाउ x and y expression is changing. This is making sure on an xy plane you are making a circle, which is also the case for cone. और उस सर्कल को एक के ऊपर एक रखने के लिए ये z पैरामीटर है कि भाई j की जितनी वैल्यू होगी उतने सर्कल्स एक के ऊपर एक रखते जाइएगा. क्वेश्चन इज, if I wanted to make a cone is also a circle on top of each other. So this cos theta sin theta has to remain there. Question is, what should I change in this particular constant such that this would become a conical surface? Any guesses? So Prasanna ji is saying 10H. Where should I put 10H?
We have to make an equation between h and radius.
R cos theta, H sin theta.
Okay, okay. तो क्या करूं प्रसन्ना जी? What should I change in my this expression? Let's say its base radius is 1.
I think J value has to be changed to fractions, or J value has to be taken in the decimal.
What thing
0.5
needs to be
J.
done in a decimal?
I mean,
We have to find out an
0.5 J.
relationship between
Find out the relationship between
height and radius.
right. So can you tell me what is that relationship for a cone?
But
Let's say if you go delta x up in the height, how much the radius would change?
R cos theta, H sin, sir.
Yeah, so let's first try to answer this question. So somebody has pointed out that first we need to figure it out, the relationship between how much you are moving upwards and how much its radius is changing. क्या figure out करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जब आप कोन में let's say x unit up जा रहे हैं तो how much its radius is getting changed. That is what we wanted to figure out. It's decreasing. Question is how much it is decreasing. So somebody says ki r cos theta, r sin theta, is it? And how should I change my r?
R cos theta, H sin theta. I think. H sin
R
theta.
cos theta, x sin theta.
H.
All right, h. And so h is j here. So you wanted to keep the x coordinate as an r cos theta, which is, let's say my radius is 0.5 here, and I can define something as an r as a constant here. Let's say r is 1 here. That can be changed. So you are saying that this has to be r and this has to be h. So my h is j here, or let me change this with an h so that it's easier for you to visualize. All right. This is what you're saying? This is what you're saying?
H sin t.
H sin t. This is
Yes.
it, right? Okay. And if I do so, H, let's say it is an interesting shape, but not looking like a cone. Cone jaisa to nahi lag raha hai. Something. So let's say, for example, here, if you look at from the bottom, it has an line segment. I mean, a cone has a vertex, a 1 point on the sides. So yeah, good try, but something needs to be changed. Yeah.
R sin theta, H cos theta.
Yes. What should I do?
R sin theta, R sin theta,
R sin theta and
H cos theta.
R sin theta and H cos theta. Okay, let's try that as well. R sin theta and H cos theta. H R sin theta cos H cos theta. Is it? This is what you wanted to do? Okay. Yeah, very similar. It's just its thing is good. A weird looking like a shape. It's an interesting shape. Eventually we'll discuss about this. But yeah, something strange. And that's the beauty of the GeoGebra. You can also see how the wrong answers can have an interesting stuff being created. I wish we can go in detail and try to understand this particular shape. It's a very interesting shape. All right. So from inside, if you look at it's a triangular shape. Not from this side.
Sir, x minus r cos t, comma x minus r sin t, sir.
Come again.
X minus r cos t.
X minus r cos t. Okay. And
Y minus r sin t, I think.
y minus
R
r
sin t.
sin t. And what are this x and y?
Sir. Decreasing, na, sir.
Let me try to. Sure.
Decreasing
So
radius.
let me once again. Sure. So let me once again try to take you to the overhead camera and let's try to see what we are trying to understand here. So let's say, for example, this is the side view of a cone. All right. So how this cone can be defined as? The cone can be defined at कि आप यहाँ पे देखेंगे तो यहाँ पे आपको एक circle मिलेगा. And this is let's say if you look at from the top this particular view को देखेंगे. So let's say this is what your one of the circle is, isn't it? Now how this circle has been defined as? The circle is defined as its radius, and the radius is this. Let's say this is the radius r prime, and this is the base radius. So this r prime, its x and y is defined as r prime cos theta, y is r prime sin theta, and these are eventually circle on stack of each other. The height is capital H. So the z is nothing but an h, where h is this thing, the height. The question is that what is the change between a cylinder and a cone? So for cylinder, this was used to remain constant, whereas in the cone, it is getting changed as you go above. The question is how much this r prime should be. So let's say, for example, if you look at this instance, इस instance पे देखें, and let's say this value is h. So can you tell me what should be the r prime value? If I know it's the height, the entire height is, let's say, 1 unit, then what should be the r prime? If this particular h is, let's say, 0.7, can you tell me what would be the r prime? Assuming this capital R is also 1. Assuming this is 45 degree. This would be 0.3, isn't it? This R prime. Because this is 0.7. So this would become 0.3. Total is 1. So this would be the ratio. These are similar triangles. These are two similar triangles. The ratio has to be same. This is 1. This is 1. So if this is 0.3, this also has to be 0.3. So this is nothing but whatever your height is, whatever your current height is, that has been defined as Z, the H. Usme the 1 minus of your height, that would be give your answer, isn't it? This is how your radius is getting changed. क्या करेंगे, ये वाला जो पैरामीटर था जिसमें ये रेडियस कांस्टेंट रह रही थी, उसके जगह पे हम क्या करेंगे, the only thing we would do is 1 minus h. That's it. And your h is going from, let's say, 0 to 1. And this will make your cone. क्या किया हमने, हमने बस इसको ऐसे डिफाइन किया है, जितना ऊपर गए 1 minus of that will become your radius. अगर इस कोण को उल्टा कर देना हो तो क्या करेंगे, if I make this as an h, this will become an उल्टा कोण. कैसे, तो h की वैल्यू सबसे पहले 0 थी, तो इसकी रेडियस भी 0 हो गई. फिर जब इस h की आधी हाइट पे पहुंचे, तब इसका जो रेडियस है, ये वाला जो सर्कल है, उसका रेडियस भी 0.5 हो गया. And this is how I have let's say, for example, define my cone. Can I let's say, for example, and instead of this, if this would have been a constant thing, अगर ये वैल्यू कांस्टेंट होती, 1 होती, तो ये सिलेंडर बन जाता. This would have become cylinder if this is the radius is constant. The moment the radius has been changed with respect to its height, linearly proportional to that, this has become a cone. The question is now, how do I make a hemisphere? Cone ban gaya, circle ban gaya.
Please
Question
share your
is-
screen, sir. It's
Oh,
not
you are
visible.
not able to. Oh, sorry, my bad. Sorry for that. So what I'm saying is, so let's say, for example, if I make this as an 1 minus h, if I do so, this is what your cone is, isn't it? क्या define किया हमने यहाँ पे? What we have done here is, and so this is your cone. What we have defined here is कि how your height is changing, 1 minus of that would define your radius. So when the h value is 0, your radius is becoming 1. This is your base circle. सबसे नीचे जो है उसका रेडियस जो है वो 1 है. The base circle. If you look at from the top, this is what your base circle looks like. तो इसकी रेडियस जो है वो 1 यूनिट है. When the h becomes 0.5, when you are at the half of your height, the radius becomes 0.5, isn't it? जब यहाँ पे h की वैल्यू 0.5 हो जाएगी, तब इसका रेडियस जो है वो 0.5 हो जाएगा, and that's where your radius is becoming half. When the h value is becoming 1, that's where your radius has become 0, and that's where your top point, the vertex, is where the radius becomes 0 and the circle converges to an point. What if I write here, instead of 1 minus h, if I do h, can you tell me what surface it will make? क्या बनेगा अगर मैं 1 minus h की जगह h करूं तो? It would be the cone only, but if I instead of 1 minus h, if I type h, it would be a cone only, but it would be a inverted cone. Why so? Because आप देखेंगे कि जब h की वैल्यू 0 है तब इसकी रेडियस भी 0 है in this particular expression, and let me just delete this. So जब h की वैल्यू 0 है तब ये जो इसका रेडियस है वो भी 0 है. That's why a point on the origin, and the moment h becomes 1, the height is 1, and that's where the radius becomes the maximum, and that's how you get your base circle.
Sir,
Ji, go ahead.
sir, in this case,
Yes.
we taking h value 2 pi to 0.
H value 2 pi to 0. Right. So that's a very interesting thing. So instead of 2 pi to 0, you can also take it from 0 to 2 pi. That's very interesting. Can anybody guess what will be the output?
Reverse, I think, sir.
You feel that's a reverse one? All right. Any other thoughts? Anybody has any thoughts? What will be the output for this command? If I type enter, how will the surface look like? If I do so, it will be once again a cone, but now you have changed the height from 0 to 1 to 0 to 2 pi, which means its height would be gonna increase. Its height has increased. That's it. Height has become the 2 pi, approximately, considering pi as, let's say, approximately 3. So this height would become almost more than 6. Excuse me. If you make the height starting from, let's say, for example, if the value is starting from -1, can anybody tell me what would be the output? Let's say if it is going from -1 to 1, can anybody tell me what would be the answer? What would be the output? The height is going from -1 to 1. क्या होगा?
It will be displaced.
It will be displaced. Okay.
I mean,
Any other thoughts?
It starts from.
Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. Let me look at the output. So it would be a double cone. Yeah, it would be a double cone because for some the radius, yeah. So the x and y parameters is the negative is the same thing, but जो height है वो यहाँ पे -1 to 0 आएगी, and then once again it's starting from 0 to 1. So it's a two inverted cone if I have height starting from -1 to 1. What if I, let's say, instead of going from angle 0 to 2 pi, what if I make the angle as 0 to pi? Can anybody tell me what will be the output here? Instead of going from 0 to 2 pi, let's say go from 0 to pi. Can you tell me what will be the surface look like? It will be a half cone. आधा कटा हुआ कोन दिखेगा. Something like this. All right. The last one, the cherry on the cake, and that's also a sphere. What should I change? And please note that how do you compare? Yeah, how do you compare your what you say, cylinder and a cone? Is the radius is constant for a cylinder. So this is your cylinder. And so where the radius is constant, everything else is same, except in a cone where the radius is getting changed linearly as you move to the height. That's your cone. Question is, how do you make a sphere or a hemisphere, half sphere? Yeah, Sandhya, you were saying something? Yeah, so Sushil ji has initially pointed out that how do you draw a cone? Wonderful. So now the question is, Sushil ji, how do you draw a hemisphere? आधा गोला कैसे draw करें? Yeah. Any thoughts? It's the same thing. The sphere is also a circle on top of each other, isn't it? Question is, how do you define the rate of change in the radius as you move up? गोले में भी क्या है? Same चीज है.
X minus R cos theta, Y minus H sin theta. R cos theta, y minus H sin theta, sir.
And question is, what are x and y here?
X minus R cos theta, y minus H sin theta, I think, sir.
No, I got that part, but question is, what is x and y here? What are these things?
Or 1 minus R cos theta, 1 minus H sin theta.
Okay, let's try to do that. So you wanted to say that कि यहाँ पे हम 1 minus ये वाला इसको मैं delete कर देता हूँ. So this is about the cone. What should I write here? 1 minus h. 1 minus h. And in the y expression, what should I do? Yes. Any thoughts? If I make it 1 minus h, both in x and y expression, this is how your radius is defined. Then it's a cone only, right? You have linearly changed it. All right. Let me once again take you to my overhead. Consider how, observe, try to see a cylinder or half of the cylinder. Hemisphere को कैसे देखेंगे? So let's say this is your hemisphere. All right. So once again, try to see if you chop it somewhere. Let's say if you chop it here at the height, let's say for example h. This is its height h. The question is, whatever circle you are getting here, and this circle has a radius, let's say r prime. And if you look at from the top, so this is the circle r prime. Its parameter. So this is this circle. This is this circle from in top. So this r parameter, the x would be r prime cos theta. The y can be defined as r prime sin theta. And of course, z is circle on top of each other for the hemisphere as well. So that would be just all these circles stacking on each other, and that's h, right? So theta goes from 0 to 2 pi. H goes from, let's say the total height of this hemisphere is 1 unit. So total height is, let's say, 1 unit. So that is how h would vary from starting from 0 to h. Question is, what will be this r prime for a given h? कोन में क्या हो रहा था? कोन में भाई h के लीनियरली प्रोपोर्शनल कर रहे थे, तो हमने 1 minus h या h कर लिया, तो मुझे r prime मिल गया था. Question is, how do I define it in a hemisphere? What do I know? I know its radius, which is 1 unit. For the base radius, the base radius is 1 unit. I know it's a given height. This is h. This I know. Question is, what will be the r prime? So if you look at this right triangle, now can you tell me what will be the r prime? What would be the radius of this circle? It will be, the radius r prime would be 1 minus h square, which is its height, isn't it? Quadratically, it will change. Unlike cone, where the decrement was, or the change was linearly, यहाँ पे भी घट रहा है. For the hemisphere also, the radius is getting changed starting from the maximum value 1, 2 and 0, but the rate of change is not linear. In fact, if you measure from an angle, कि कौन सा angle वो बना रहा है, so it's a sinusoidal change initially, or let's say cosine change. Initially, with a given angle, the change is very little. As you move ahead, the change is very sharp, so it's not a linear change. And this is how we would try to define it up, the cone on this particular equations. क्या करेंगे हम? We would define the rate of change in the radius, how the radius is getting changed. The radius is getting changed by 1 minus h square. Whatever the height is, the square of, under root of 1 minus square of that. This is how it is getting changed. Let's write the expression here as well. And this becomes your hemisphere. How do I make the complete sphere? Can anybody guide me with that? What we have done here is, for me, cylinder, cone, and the hemisphere are the same. It's just circle on top of each other. How you have defined your cylinder, radius constant रह रही है circle की. Cone पे हमने क्या किया? Cone में हमने उस change को linearly change किया by, let's say, how you have moved in the height, the same proportional to that by defining the radius as h, or let's say 1 minus h. That's how you have moved a cone. And for the hemisphere, how the radius is getting changed as you move ahead, it's under root of 1 minus h square. This is how your hemisphere has been defined. This is what your hemisphere is. All right. How, and let's try to compare all of them. So this is how this is your cylinder. Your cylinder where the radius was remaining constant 1, and this is your cone. They all are very similar to each other. It's circle stacked on each other, except the radius is getting changed. That's it. So you have a hemisphere, a cylinder, and a cone defined in a parametric way. The first one, a very simplest one, where the radius is 1 unit, and then you have this cone where the height is linearly getting changed, and there the next one you have is a hemisphere where the rate of change of radius as you move in the height is under root 1 minus h square. How do you draw a hemisphere, I mean complete sphere? Can anybody guide me? What should I change in this equation? इसमें हम क्या change
H
करें?
value -1 to 1.
-1 to 1.
H value -1 to 1.
Right.
Sir, removing root 1 minus h square.
Removing.
Direct 1 minus h square only, I think.
Okay. Let's see what's the output for that. If I do -1 to 1, this is what the complete sphere looks like. And how you have defined the parameters? You have defined the parameters as, here is your parameter, which says that the h value starting from -1, the moment it is -1, the h square becomes 1. So 1 minus 1 would be the 0. The radius becomes 0 on the bottom point, which is at the z minus 1, right? Your x and y becomes point. When it is h value is 0, then the radius becomes 1. That's where the maximum radius is. Similarly, when the h becomes 1, once again the radius becomes 0. That's where your top point is, right? So this is how you have defined the sphere. All right. So my suggestion is that for today, why don't you digest this parametric perspective of looking at the surfaces of a 3D solids or a 2D curve, and using this, we would try to make a very interesting 3D solids and various interesting parametric thing in our upcoming sessions. Hopefully you have get a different perspective of this particular 3D solids, and using different perspective in a different way, we would try to define this 3D solids and try to draw using this parametric equations. Thank you so much for staying connected so long, so late. Hopefully you'll be able to, you would try to make this and look forward to looking forward next week, where we would be using this parametric definitions in a much involved way and making some interesting stuff. Okay, thank you so much. Any questions, any doubts you have, feel free to discuss. Yeah.